I want to do a follow up to the video on the spirit cooking thing that we heard about the other day and the scandals in the Clinton inner circle. It's it's extremely profound. Okay, that's just all there is to it. This is why it's taken off, but it's also I warned about the idea of sensationalizing it. Now, what is happening is basically the Clinton administration is following a kind of a Crowley type archetype in that it represents filth and decay. And this stuff comes to the surface in order to show us this filth and decay. Now, when you think of things like, you talk about what goes on at these performance art things, it's diseased, it's pestilence, seminal fluids, body fluids, it's dirty, it's filthy, it's mucky. And on the surface, it seems rather intense, it seems rather disgusting, and rather terrifying to many people. But you have to understand that roses and flowers grow out of filth and dirt. Food and sustenance and grass to feed animals grows out of dirt and filth. And this is what's happening here. What we're seeing is something on the subconscious level being taken into the bigger level. You see, when you see something like that, what you see is the shadow of society as a whole. Now, I know a lot of people have a problem with Aleister Crowley. I do myself. He wasn't a particularly nice man, but I understand where he was coming from. He wanted to destroy Victorian Puritanism and the hypocrisies inherent in that, and that hypocrisy that travelled all through his lifetime. I think it was the Norwegian writer Joe Nesbo. He pointed this kind of contradiction out beautifully. I think he said we're capable of understanding that someone has to drop an atomic bomb on a town of innocent civilians, but not that others have to cut up prostitutes who spread disease and moral depravity in the slums of London. Hence, we call the former realism and the latter madness. But what Nesbo is saying is the same thing. It's we have a clinical approach to murder, but not a kind of a rational one. So when Jack the Ripper in Crowley's lifetime was cutting up prostitutes in the East End of London, that was seen as, in the minds of depraved people, as a way of stopping the spread of venereal disease because people were afraid to go near prostitutes. For prostitutes, it was starvation, poverty, because they couldn't find clients or they were afraid they were going to be chopped up if they went out. But also, society had become so dark that a woman was willing to risk being chopped up in order to feed herself or her children by being a prostitute at the time of Jack the Ripper. At the same time, later on in that cycle, we had the atomic bomb dropped on two cities in Japan for the necessity of stopping a war. We have a clinical attitude. If we had the same clinical attitude to both, we would not have any kind of moral revulsion in there. And what the likes of Crowley was doing with his obsession with filth and dirt was that he was literally tearing the eyes out of Christ on the cross, resetting society, destroying it, and bringing it back. Now, there's that poem he has, Leah Sublime. If you've ever read it, it's quite shocking even by today's standards. But I'll only read you a tiny bit of it. And remember, this is much worse than this in the poem. And this is a homage to Leah, basically one of his scarlet women. Choke me with split of your sow belly filth, stab your demonic smile to my brain, soak me in cognac, cunt, and cocaine, sprawl on me, sit on my mouth, Leah, shit on me, slut, creamy the curds that drip from your gut, greasy the turds, dribble your dung on the tip of my tongue, churn on me, Leah, twist on your thighs, smear diarrhea into my eyes, splutter out shit from the bottomless pit. And the final part of that, Leah Sublime, about shit from the bottomless pit, is almost like that's the ultimate correction. It's like the tarot card in the tarot, a complete destruction. What people are seeing when they see these spirit cooking videos and they see the social circles that the bureaucrats surrounding Clinton move within, is they're seeing the end. We're seeing the end. and they want you, instead of, there's ways of processing things when you see the end. You either accept it or you don't. I come from the kind of like the Kali-esque idea that it has to be destroyed, it has to end. It has Plants have to decay in order for the soil to be enriched for new plants to come up again. There's no continuation. Now, why has this come out, and why is this exist in this kind of Clinton idea at the moment? It's because Americans did not process 9/11 properly. The way to see 9/11 in many ways was the American version of the burning of the Library of Alexandria. Now, what happened at the burning of the Library of Alexandria was it led to the end of the classical era. And the reason why that happened was it was not fully processed. Instead of the ones who killed Hypatia being brought to justice in any meaningful or moral or even a reflective sense, it continued on for a little while longer until it all fell apart under a bubonic plague under Emperor Justinian in Byzantium. After, ironically, the Hagia Sophia was built, but it was the end because it hadn't been processed properly. The experience had not been processed properly. It had just become the new way, and the new way was incorrupt. It was unclean. Now you see that what happened at the 9/11 was there was some Americans who said this is a problem caused by our American foreign policy, and we must operate differently with the world. There was other ones who say, yeah, let's go get them. What happened was they got the let's go get them, but they went to the wrong side. They attacked Saddam Hussein and Iraq because the neocons saw this as an opportunism. Clinton is continuing that filth on, and you cannot hide your shadow or your filth for too long before it comes to the surface. And her filth and dirt and who she's surrounded by has come to the surface. Now, you can sit there going, oh, it's terrible. They're all Satanists. We must bring it down. Or you can look on it rationally that perhaps, just maybe, the Donald Trump movement, in fact, I believe it is the flowers and the new food growing from the filth of failed political, economic, social, and cultural policies. Now, even to bring the Crowley thing back into that again, if you there's some very interesting videos of young women on YouTube who are telling men who they're friends or their boyfriends with to get out of their lives if they're voting for Trump. This is like really, I mean, I've noticed that the people who are anti-Trump, they're hysterical and they're shrill. That's because they are like Crowley's scarlet women. The system has given them nothing except a fanatical belief in something that has bled them dry. They're spent scarlet women, and you have all these shrill females and these effeminate beta men screaming that, if you support Trump, get out of my life. And it's all very shrill, it's all very childish, it's all very infantile in exactly the same way as the women who got involved with Crowley all ended up. All the Scarlet Women ended up as shrill lunatics who were spent. And what you're seeing when you see all these social justice warriors and these feminists and these beta males and all these other types who are screaming vote Hillary, and Michael Moore is a classic example of a weak beta man, spent. It's shrill, it's hysterical, they're terrified. They're terrified because they know they're dead. They know that they are now taking their turn as the soil and the filth and the dirt below in order for the new flowers to grow. Now, if Hillary Clinton wins this election, it will go into a complete and utter bedlam type situation because there's no new flowers growing. The filth and the dirt is being continually pushed down, and the shadow is being continually pushed down. The neocons will still. This is why the likes of Cheney and warmongers like Colin Powell support Clinton. They want the shadow compressed, 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 compressed. And as that compression of the shadow happens, more and more filth will come out. So you think what you saw in that spirit cooking thing was bad enough. Much worse will come if she wins because the shadow will be continually suppressed under a lie that a vagina or a woman is a great thing inside the White House. Nothing new. You see, you've got to die all the time in your life. You know what I mean? Like you have a relationship, it's not working out, you break up. It hurts, it's painful, it leads to the filth and decay of your behavior. You might hate someone, hate their guts, they hate you, it gets very dirty. But from that filth, from that dirt, arises the new potentials. The same thing is happening now. There are people who can see the future because they've invested so much in the field. That's what's got, and they're the ones who are supporting Clinton. Now, people will say things like, "These people like like Trump, have no political experience," and you have like the ones saying this, ironically, are the ones like the Bushes, the Clintons, and even Trudeau in Canada, who is part of a dynasty. These are royal families. They don't have political experience. What they have is bloodlines. It's not the same thing. They're in there like the old medieval royal families. That's all they're like robber barons. That's what they're in. And they're great. Their greatest fear is someone who's not from that system coming in and making people think of politics as being, well, maybe it is possible without having bureaucrats in the same families as the same politicians of generation to generation. So this is a very Crowley, Aleister Crowley type election in America, because what we're seeing is all the things that he basically created for the 20th century are now coming to fruition. I mean, it's coming, it's happening. But it's happening on their small macro level. On their small macro level, it's falling apart. And there's two choices here, right? The one is to, if they go with Clinton, you will have what we had after the fall of the Roman Empire and Justinian, the beginning of what they called the Dark Ages, which weren't so bad because there was an adjustment going on there, but then it led to the horrific Middle Ages. Middle Ages, when they slaughtered the Cathars, when all the genocides began, when when the greatest horrors, and again the filth continued to grow until that eventually collapsed through bubonic plagues and so on, from all people being stuck in filthy cities and towns, and then we had the Renaissance. If Clinton remains, the filth will become darker. The spiritual decay will become worse. If Clinton is removed and Trump gets in, there's no chance. I'm not saying there's going to be a paradise. There's not going to be any kind of wonderful thing. But what we have then, as the seeds have then been planted on the filth and the dirt that has now become compost. And compost creates new growth. It creates new life. It's not just filth and dirt that has produced nothing new, that's just gone moldy and rotten. And that will happen all through every aspect of reality, all the way. So that spirit cooking thing you have seen is really Clinton anity, showing its dark shadow to the surface. The filth is still being piled down, both the filth inside the subconscious mind, both the filth of society and degradation. And this is what Crowley was trying to tell you. Speed that process up. Make the filth as apparent as possible, because then people will seek to find the beauty, and they will want to grow flowers and food from the filth and not continue to pile on the filth.